love and you care about and the people who you work with to your society? And can you make a difference? I wake up every morning, I say to my most wonderful wife, darling, I love you, and I'm sorry. That sets me up for the rest of the day. And then I look at the mirror and I say that today I am going to be of service, and today I'm going to make a difference in somebody's life. It's quite difficult. Life is not without its little challenges, but it's most important that is my guiding principle. But enough of the philosophizing. If you wanted a philosopher, we should have brought somebody with stately, long, flowing white hair. Maybe a little bit of a jigger on the hands, and a whiskey glass in the other. And he or she could tell us who would win the next cricket match and certainly the next election. I'm not a politician and I'm certainly not a philosopher, and I'm here because I wanted to give you some tips on your career. I'm very blunt and very basic with you. I'm very honored to be here. It's been my privilege since I've been in India I've been living in Bangalore here for the last 5 years, to have attended many, many universities, to face off with many, many bright-eyed and bushy-tailed MBA students like you, in your first year, your second year. I think that it's terribly important that industry professionals have an outreach program towards youngsters like you. Otherwise, you'll never know what it's like to work in the modern world. You'll never know what it's like to work for non-Indian bosses or in non-Indian businesses. And you don't want, and I don't want you to be too shocked. So in a nice way, I'm not shouting, I'm not talking too loud. I'm going to explain a few things that I hope you take to heart. They've stood me in good stead. And because it's a Holland international best practice, it will stand you in good stead as well. I think it's important because I believe that's what a chief guest is meant to offer. Good old-fashioned advice. Okay. So I have these thoughts. We're in India. In India, IST does not stand for Indian Standard Time. 5 years ago, I was taught by some of my best colleagues and friends that actually IST means Indian Stretchable Time. I think that it's terribly important, students, that you learn to reset your wristwatches. I'm afraid that nobody's waiting for you, especially at your tender age. You will need to be on time. You will need to stick to deadlines. You will need to honor your commitments in respect to sticking to deadlines. I know how it is at university. A little nudge here and a wink there, and maybe there'll be an extension. The senior staff here might let you have your essay in tomorrow or something of that nature. But in the real world, I'm afraid that that is not the case. In the real world, there are deadlines. In the real world meetings, when they start at 10, they mean 10, and it starts at 10. And if you arrive late, it's considered to be rude. That is never the intention. I'm sure from you. You'll need to reset your watch, and you'll need to start practicing that now, I reckon. In fact, most of these points are very basic. But I understand the importance of me having the privilege and pleasure of presenting it to you. So you'll hear it, you've heard it from the esteemed staff here, you've heard it from Professor Mani, you're going to hear it from me. And I make this point every time I stand before the MBAs. I'm intimidated by your eagerness and your incredible minds. I trust that you're intimidated by my ability to be on time. It's very important. So, the next thing I'd like to leave you with is that you've got this incredible education under your belt, or soon to have under your belt. It's all good and well that you've done the bookish things. But life is what happens when you make plans. Remember what I was saying, I've only got a B degree, and I've got a few years of experience in the work market. The reality is that what the work market has set me up for is change. And I'm afraid to say that there are a couple of things in life that you will never, ever really be able to train for one of them is change. So the more you start understanding how you feel when things change, the more you'll be able to respond to them in the future. Expect the unexpected. Here in India particularly. As I've run malls, I've got several malls under management, I've got lots of wonderful people with me in my management teams. I have now learnt that people come and go quite suddenly. Today I might be talking to you and tomorrow you've got your native for some puja or for some festival. I shrug, fine, we'll carry on. That's part of change management. There's no point in fighting change. Somebody very famous says that you can be sure of many things in life, but you can be critically assured of death and taxes. You can escape one. And I think that if you encounter change as an opportunity, chance favors the prepared mind. It's important that you understand that. It's remarkable how many times I am surprised that in the back of my mind I was thinking about a shop coming vacant in a shopping centre, and it could be a coffee shop, and I meet the MD of Starbucks. And now we're talking to Starbucks about coming into Bangalore in 3 or 4 locations. Chance favors the prepared mind. Read as much as possible. Prepare those grey cells for what they're intended. You're young enough to keep acting like a sponge. Sponge. Learn. Ask. But be prepared. And don't go by first impressions. I always wear a jacket and a tie when I walk into speaking to the MBAs, because I know that that is the convention by which your standard has been set. The chief guest will always wear a cheap tie and a jacket. But I'm very uncomfortable in a jacket and a tie. I only wear it so that I can make you feel comfortable. But in reality, please understand that first impressions are often dangerous. You've got to go a little bit below that surface. You've got to seek first to understand before being understood. You've got to ask questions. I'm reminded here in India, as a South African here in India, that the very thin pattern of chaos is the cover for an incredible, wonderful, splendid life. And when people like me have come to India for the first time, they have been intimidated by the chaos out there, and they judge the roads out there, and they drive straight past this incredible institution, and they miss out on the incredible staff that guide your young, eager beaver minds. And I'm very pleased that I was brought up by my late father and by my wonderful mother to never judge a book by its cover. Let the guy open his mouth first. Let him say something. Give the guy a chance. You may be bright. Please God, many of you are brighter than me. I think it's wonderful. I'm not intimidated by that. But give me a chance. I'm older than you, and I've got something in my back pocket that you don't have. Experience. And I can hone my mind into a solution far faster than any of you. Because I know how to run shopping centers, I know how to manage people, and I know how to get things out of you. Skills you've not learned yet. Don't judge a book by its cover. Whether I'm wearing a tie, or whether I'm wearing a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, let the guy open his mouth. It's what's in their head that's important. So when we talk about the head, let me talk a little bit about what I have learned about my very dear friends and colleagues who are Indian. We have a nasty habit here of negotiating against ourselves. I call it the jalebi effect. Happy to talk. Round and 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 round, and we get back to the same point where we started. And we start all over again. Well, I'd like you to know that my staff and I often debate with each other how many times we've said the same thing in the same conversation. You need to be very mindful of it, my dear students. it's very dangerous. I don't have that patience, nor do most non-Indian business people. The Chinese will chop you into little pieces and serve you as chop suey. And the Americans will tell you straight, stop talking, you don't make sense. The South Africans will continue to beat you on the cricket pitch. Oh, did I say I was South African? And did I say that I come from the greatest cricket playing nation in the world? I have to get that in. I have to always get that in. With the people who gave me Gary Kirsten. Steer clear of this jalebi effect, guys. It's dangerous. And sometimes you don't even realize when you're actually in the whirlwind because you're listening to yourself and you're not allowing others to speak. It's probably one of the most important human skills you should learn. God gave us one mouth, 2 eyes, and 2 ears, and lots and lots of grey cells between the ears and the eyes. Use that in that proportion. Sometimes it's best. Agatha Christie, a great English crime writer, invented a character, Hercule Poirot, a Belgian detective with a huge moustache. He would make the generals in the Indian army cringe because he had this incredible black moustache that would be rolled at the ends to a point. He was an incredible detective because he always used to say to the French and the British police in the books, obviously, you must use your eyes and your ears in the proportion that God gave you. Use the grey cells. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you must realize that you may not be the smartest person in the room. Seek first to understand, then be understood. It's most important. As I'm a South African, I'm not entirely vegetarian. So I apologize in advance to my audience here who are vegetarian. I find it useful, however, to use a particularly non-vegetarian analogy. When you consider the jalebi effect, the fact that you're negotiating against yourselves, there can be no outcome. Nobody will win, except you think you're winning because you're agreeing with yourself. My view is that you have to eat what you kill. Think of the idea or the point of argument as being prey, your prey, the target of your team, the winnings. And the way to achieve the winnings is to get it on the ground, hold it down, tie it up. Here's the vegetarian option, tie it up, okay. In South Africa, I would say kill it, all right? But you've got it, you get the idea? Eat what you kill. The hunter-gatherers of this world didn't walk up to an impala or to a buffalo, pat it on its head and say, just by looking at you, I'm going to assuage my hunger, okay? They went with weapons, in those days of mass destruction, a bow and arrow and a spear, and they killed the animal and they chopped it into little pieces, put it on a fire, and they ate it. I hope that I'm being very graphic. I don't mean to disturb or upset any sensitivities, but I hope that you get the point. Understand that if you want to make a point, you actually have to get to the point. And as young MBA students, you've been trained to make a point. So use your training. If you see somebody else's point of view, that's a fantastic skill to be able to see other people's view. But at least make your point, make it short, make it sweet, and move on. I was speaking at a conference yesterday and I asked one of the panelists on a session I was moderating. He had 5 points in a particular matter, and I said, you've got your 5 points and you've got 3 minutes to make it, go. I interrupted him after the first minute because he hadn't even got to start one of point 1. Don't be like that. It's not fair to the audience, and it's actually not fair to you. Because you think that you're making a point, and you're actually not. You're wasting everybody's time. Time has a value. It slips away. It's one of those things that you can't get back. You know, the jalebi effect has a friend. It's a friend that very few people know about, but it's something that I've noticed here particularly. And it's Mr. and Miss, let's finish your sentence. And I love it when Auntie finish sentence is in the room, because it's so economical for me. I don't have to finish what I'm saying. Allow people to say what they have to say. Allow them to finish. Only then, when they've finished with a flourish, are you able to understand what their point is. How often do we tend to interrupt? How often do we tend to presume we know what the point is, so we make it on their behalf and get it wrong? And then you go into the Chilean effect. I know by now, I've stressed this point so many times, you guys are realizing that I'm being deadly serious. For me, this is not a joke. For me, this is a vicious bite of reality in dealing with young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed MBA students. You see, guys, as Professor Mani so capably said when we were talking together upstairs in your beautiful boardroom, my gravest concern for you is that you are relatively unemployable. It's quite frightening that your parents have put you through fantastic education. You've paid, they've paid. But that the skills that you have learned are not the skills that would round you as an international MBA student. Internationally around the world, people of your age have jobs, part-time jobs, babysitting, fixing bicycles, preparing idli. It doesn't matter. Don't give me this dignity of labor nonsense either. It doesn't actually. In the rest of the world, you know what? Some of the most notable people made pancakes and swept streets before they became incredible. You follow Mr. Gates and find out what he did. You look at Mr. Buffett and find out what he did. You ask them how many toilets they cleaned. They will be proud to tell you that they clean toilets. I will stand here and tell you that in part of my training from a hotel background and a shopping center background, these little hands cleaned toilets and floor drains that we washed many times since then. And I'm proud of the fact that I know how to clean a toilet because I can tell you how to. And I can make sure that my guests know what it's like to have a clean toilet. Always outcomes based, guys. That's part of your education. But if you've not done that, if you've not learned the skill, if these hands have never worked in relation to the gray cells, in my view, it makes you relatively unemployable. It means that when you sit opposite me in an interview, as is off the case, what invariably happens is that when I ask, tell me, what experience have you had? None is the answer. And that for me is devastating. There has to be a fundamental change in the way you see your careers. See, I stand, as has been my privilege, before University of Cape Town, University of Stellenbosch students over the years talk about particularly real estate and retail. But what's interesting is that the direct connection that exists between them and my subject is so complete that when I talk about shelf packing, 20% of the youngsters in the room are shelf packers because they all work at the local supermarket. And when I talk about serving at a restaurant, they all understand that because they all work at restaurants. There is a gap in your skills development, and you're needing to attend to it. If you lived in America or in France or Australia or in China, you would have part-time jobs. You wouldn't be able to afford all the things that you wanted otherwise, firstly. And secondly, all your friends would be having part-time jobs, and you'd be really the odd person out if you didn't have another part-time job. You know what's so interesting is that this part-time job thing is so keenly ingrained that my daughter here at 16 is babysitting where we live. She's got 3 or 4 clients for whom she babysits. And my son he's actually a fantastic swimmer and he's an incredible paintball player. So he gives paintball lessons to corporates. He's 18 and he's telling people of my age how to lie down and how to jump and all the rest of it. And he makes a little bit of money. 500 rupees, 300 rupees. But you know what? There are 2 skills that are very, very notable, even at that tender age. The first is to be on time for your job, and the second is to take instruction. To be on time for your job and to take instruction takes discipline. And as a young MBA student, you're going to need to learn those particular students. Because if you're going to be working, and most importantly, if you're going to be the boss one day, my dear student, you're going to have to learn what it's like to take abuse and instruction and criticism. Life is not perfect, number one. Life is not like living in kindergarten, number two. There's a reality to life. It comes with barbs, it comes with criticism, it comes with people like me who want something done in a particular time frame, in a particular fashion. And it's not for you to argue, it's for you to do. Otherwise, I'm going to find somebody else. Life is rough. Get used to it. Embrace the change. So my last 2 points, believe it or not, are a lot more positive. Professor Doctor, I've worked out by now that they're terrified. And they need some kind of sustenance to move forward. Okay? So, very much like the Indian cricket team of late, we've had the patience to see them celebrate victory. It's nice to see the Indian cricket team winning for a change, on home ground and abroad. But what's so most important is that we've had patience. We haven't thrown them out like a leftover Pepsi tin. We've said we respect that they need to go through difficult times and that they're retooling and they're coming together as a team. And most importantly, we must support them through these difficult times. You have the patience. That's a very important skill, and I applaud that and congratulate you. And the second thing is the way that I have seen my way through here in these wonderful 5 years that my family and I have spent in India, and with the thousands of people who I've actually met as a shopping center manager and a manager of shopping center managers, and speaking to youngsters like you, is to have a small sense of humor. A smile breaks the ice. A greeting invokes a human response. And a laugh reminds us that we are, after all, humans. And we laugh. And we find happiness in things, even when things are down. And I would suggest that you keep your sense of humor and you learn to nurture it. It comes in very, very useful. So I'm thinking, as I'm speaking, have I covered all the things that Professor Mani has challenged me to? In the beginning, he said, internship. Yes, we can do that. I'm very proud of the fact that in the last 5 years, an organization called RICS, which I'm a board member here, it's a professional real estate institution based out in London.